Yes, the question is if they're, what year the current project's in with the change notices, everything. We do have a list of those projects in a report for you. We've also emailed that to Mr. Taha yesterday, and I do have copies for you today.
If you can send the second question goes to the office of legislative council to see if they have reviewed those projects and verify that they are eligible for this legislation. Ms. Espino?
Sorry, Chair, you asked if we had reviewed the projects?
Yes, for legislation 2525, that legislation, I'm pulling it up now.
That one we, I'm sorry, that one we did review, and we actually worked with DOJ on some amendments for that legislation.
Okay, before I get to the questions about the amendments, I just want to verify that OLC and DOJ have met with ECD and MLC to ensure that these projects, according to the legislation, would be eligible for the extension that the legislation is asking for. I'm saying that because now DOJ came out with the memo saying that it depends on the OMD set of the business unit. So we just need to verify that DOJ and OLC, when they were advising the sponsor on this legislation and not before the budget and finance committee, that you all verified that there have been business units that have been used.
Okay, I did not work on it to the point of verifying the projects, but perhaps Mel did. Mariana worked with Mel on this, so I'll have to defer to Mel to see if he knows what the expiration date is on those projects.
Thank you, Ms. Espino. Mr. Rhodes?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, I don't know the expiration dates because I don't know when the business units were set up in FMIS, and that's why I didn't attach an exhibit to my memo with expiration dates or dates that the business units were set up. So I did not verify that, but I think that we need this information from OMB. Since OMB set up the business units, they'll be able to verify the dates that the business units were set up. And then we can just count the 72 months from those dates. But the amendment that was, I'm sorry, Chair. I'm sorry, Chair. The amendment that was drafted proposes to change the measurement from, instead of it being the date of distribution, meaning the date the business units were set up, I'm suggesting that it be 24 months from the effective date of the resolution. And that will clear up any confusion about when the funding would expire, when the deadline runs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rhodes. Appreciate your advisement on this legislation and your proposed amendments. However, that doesn't change the current situation we are with this legislation and the previous Nixon legislation. The concern is that, again, I think Chair Friday stated it well, and she said that we take a look at these projects, their expiration date, many of them have shortfalls. But many council delegates are also considering what to do in place of that shortfall. So we just have to be smart about spending our money and also planning for our money. This CDFA that was passed by the council lays out a capital development strategic plan that will avoid this in the future. But because we don't currently have that implemented, we are where we are. So we do need that question solved, and I don't know how OLC or DOJ advised on this legislation when they did not verify that each of the projects are legally still have money in them, but they still, I don't know how we put together legislation, and we don't know if the funds are actually available. So this is a very generalized legislation, so we need specific understanding from the Office of Management Budget and the Division of Community Development, because this just shows that they are not aware of their projects, they are not aware of their business units, they are not aware of their expenditure rates, so how can this committee consider the legislation when nobody knows when the business units were created? Does the Division of Community Development have a response to it? Are you all looking that up? Ms. Peterson said she was looking it up. I don't want to do that. I need to.
Oh, our internet's funky right now today. Can you call? Oh, thank you.
Never seen that.
Yeah.
We're working on it.
All right, so Chair Cardi, that was to your line of question, that's the additional question.
So Chair, Vice Chair, you can modify your amendment, and if in fact we get. This can, yes, and I want to move forward with these projects and this clarification, because my chapter through CPM's advice are asking me to sign up on some of these forms, and I'm like, I don't think that money is still there. And I mean, I've been asking for 4 months, so I just wanna, if you could just pause, get that information, do the reports. And that other legislation, I'll second if that's, if you're up to that modification, thank you.
We're not supposed to do debate on the second motion, I'll offer this amendment. That was just a bit of a conversation, you know. I would like to offer amendment number 1, that amendment will be to add 1426 to the agenda. And for the record, we will consider adding the other ones on the agenda, once we get some clarification. And secondarily, cause after we do this, I'm gonna try and step away and run the test real quick about Senate bill out there, so I'm not.
We're listening to it right now,
You're listening to it?
it's all right now.
Well, I was caucus chair, I think I was talking for a second. But I will, offer that amendment for 1426. As Mr. Gotti read to the record.
Thank you, Vice Chair Slater. These legislations are for the committee, and the committee will work together with the Division of Community Development, the sponsors here, we receive those with questions answered for one meeting. And then we'll proceed forward, so Ms. Peterson, Ms. Yazzie, and Ms. Jeff, if you could get those dates of when the next meetings are set up. For legislation 25225, which is delegate urban justice legislation. And also legislation 25125, which is delegate drinking session legislation. Once you have those dates set, then send it over to Mr. Taki. The committee has expressed that they will add the legislation to the agenda when we find that information. So we're working on the internet in this room. I have my hotspot open, so I'll be that jump on that. All right, members of the committee, we do have a motion on the floor to add legislation 1426 to the agenda. Is there a second to this motion? Second by Delegate Lester Yasi. Members of the Budget and Finance Committee to amendment number 1. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, hearing none, I have one request with Division of Community Development. DCE, which budget officer do you need assistance from for all of these? Darlene Sam? Yes. Okay, this is, do you have the Sam's number, three texter and ask her, I think you're already online in this meeting. Just to say on the phone? Or we'll listen to Darlene Sam.
It's the island agreement.
Is Sterling Sam?
So it's
Someone will be
1426.
all notified of Sterling Sam that the Division of Community Development needs her assistance in verifying the business unit date setup. You could send that over to the Budget and Finance Committee advisor, Mr. Rodney Coffey or Ms. Cheryl Noza on the case. And so we'd appreciate that. All All right, thank you. And then this is, I just notes that it's just Sam. Thank you guys. Thank you. All right, there's a motion second. Any questions?
Cool. First.
Vice Chair, so your motion was to add 142 and also you stated on the record initially was to also to delete 25125. So that was the first motion, and then you modified it to also add 106. Yes, that's all we're. All right. Question? All right, hearing none, we'll go to roll call vote. Delegate Norman McGee, how do you vote? Green. Delegate Shirley Osmond, how do you vote? Green. Delegate Shirley Osmond votes green, and Delegate Lester Osmond, how do you vote?
Madam Chair, I vote green.
Delegate Lester Osmond votes green. Vice Chairman Carl Slater, how do you vote?
For green.
Vice Chairman Carl Slater votes green. And Chairman Edward Nestor Friday is excused from this vote. I know the MTR meeting is open, so it should excuse from this vote. With that, we have 4 members voting in the affirmative, 1 member excused, myself not voting, the motion carries on to amendment number 1. Over to the Budget and Finance Committee, are there any more amendments for the agenda at this time? All right, hearing none, we'll go to a final vote on the meeting motion as amended. Yes, please. Again, members of the committee, that is to delete legislation 25125 at this time. And then to add legislation 1426 to the agenda. So that's the agenda with the. Delegate Norman McGee, how do you vote? Votes green. All right, Delegate Shirley Yasi, how do you vote? Green. Delegate Shirley Yasi votes green, and Chairman Amber Nestor Price, so excuse this vote. Delegate Lester Yasi, how do you vote?
Madam Chair, I vote green.
Delegate Lester Yasi votes green, Vice Chairman Carl Slater, how do you vote?
Green.
Vice Chairman Carl Slater votes green. We have 4 members voting in the affirmative, 1 member excused, myself not voting, the motion carries on our agenda. All right, next we have review and adopt our journal of January 21st, 2026. Some of the committee, this is attached to our calendar invite, and you know that's the committee last week. Would anyone like to offer a motion to adopt the journal? Delegate Shirley Yasi would like to offer that motion. Would anyone would like to second? Second by Delegate Lester Yasi. Members of the Budget and Finance Committee, we have a motion and second established and adopting our journal. Any questions on the journal? Hearing none, we'll go to roll call vote. Vice Chairman Carl Slater, how do you vote?
Green.
Vice Chairman Carl Slater votes green, and Delegate Lester Yasi, how do you vote?
Chair, I vote green.
Delegate Lester Yasi votes green, Delegate Shirley Yasi, how do you vote? Green. Delegate Shirley Yasi votes green, Delegate Norman McGee, how do you vote? Delegate Norman McGee votes green. We have 4 members voting in the affirmative, 1 member excused, myself not voting, the motion carries on adopting our journal. All right, next, members of the Budget and Finance Committee. We will be receiving 2 reports, 2 update reports, one from the Division of General Services. And also one from the Division of Human Resources. The committee didn't amend our. I guess. It's the legislation before the. So, we're gonna start with reports today. Again, while we're doing this, Division of Community Development and OB, you guys will work together, so that we can consider the legislation. When the legislation comes up, so we do. All right, next, we're gonna welcome up Mr. Bullion. Mr. Bullion. From the Division of General Services. Business with the Burlington. Like, or wait, is he, do you oversee his accounts?
I think it's Darlene,
Darlene,
yeah.
Okay. We're starting from that. I just wanted to make sure. If anybody has questions about this, that they can see it. Okay, this is a follow-up report from the Division of General Services Fleet Management on their rates. There was a discrepancy found in the first quarter. And now, actually discrepancy found in the 4th quarter of FY 25 that impacted FY 26. So Mr. Bullion is here to give us an update on where we are with that. Welcome, Mr. Bullion.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. this, at the request of the committee, we revised our report, kind of made it a little bit more uniform like you wanted.
Second.
Madam Chair, so. Just an update on the credits and reimbursements that were made. All of it will have been completed since November. Verification on the reimbursement for dam and earth for water resources. I don't know what's going on with FMS. We couldn't confirm the actual if it was applied, the reimbursement was applied, but it was submitted for budget finance. Yeah. Yeah. It probably went in November. Yeah, it's either November, I'm pretty sure it's November, not October. So that's out of this discrepancy sheet that was provided to us that we verified. Earth and dam from water resources is the only department that wanted an actual reimbursement. The rest of the departments on the list were credited, and all credits were completed on November. Yes, just, I guess you wanted to know if, how our program is, our software program that tracks, the access program that we utilize to tracks the vehicle user rates and mileages and stuff like that. How it was procured, so just kind of give us an overview how, Martin Sable was selected, and it wasn't through a contract, it was through a purchase order that we were able to have the access program to our need. So we have copies of the 6B requisition, order, purchase order numbers and stuff like that. In addition to that, we have FMIS reports also as well on how the acquisition of the program was acquired. In addition to that, we provided some examples on how the access program was tailored to our needs. So how to track the vehicles and how it inventories the vehicles, and that's the last tab where it says examples. Just like, for example, the permanent vehicle assignments and how that was tailor made and access for us to update yearly in fiscal year. And some of the key information that provided on that example is the business unit members for the departments that utilize our vehicles and stuff like that. That's indicated on there. And in addition to that, monthly forms are just provided to the departments that utilize our vehicles as well, and how they need to provide us the mileage every month, on the 20th of every month. And from there, it goes into our access program. And we're able to track and fill out these use journal voucher to go out to the various departments that utilize our vehicles. One of the access program is too that it tracks the vehicle use and misuse. Know that this is a database that was utilized, so we can go back probably all the way back since its inception, I think it was 2012. we can possibly go back and extract information from that. In that timeframe. Again, if you go down further, the tracks are temporary vehicle assignment as well. These are rental vehicles that the staff, the companies are able to utilize from our fleet, services. In addition to that, this actual program, all of the 5 agencies, services have this information as well. They have rental vehicles available to them in those various agencies as well, so they utilize the same system as well. In addition to that, you can see that some of the forms that we utilize that submitted to the finance department for the JVs. It gives us a detail on what it goes with cage count or general fund account. It indicates that. In addition to that, you can scroll down, you can actually put the driver to the vehicles, it's indicating on there too as well. So that's a way back an example. That's the extent of it.
Yeah, the report, go through the share as well. Okay, yeah, but, that's it. The waves that we were. Okay. Oh, it's in front of us. With the hard copy. I think oh, yeah.
It's a large file, so I found in a shared file, there's 36 megs.
I just want to see. Right. Zach, everybody.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Leon, for the report this morning, members of the Budget and Finance Committee to refresh us, early on in August, or I think it's September 2025. We heard from Mr. Leon on the fleet management pool, where there was concern about the accounting and tracking of how the programs were being built. And there was a concern about how the program was keeping track of all these funds, and there was inconsistency. Some programs are being charged more, some programs are not being charged at all or less. And so a lot of that burden got put onto the navigation police department. And this is the update report on the progress they've made so far. So I don't know if it's big, but it sounds like the Division of General Services submitted a reimbursement payment to the Office of the Controller. I didn't hear much about the policies they're following in order to do that, or county mechanisms to do that. So I leave that to the committee to update to Mr. Williams. And is there a motion to accept this? My little draft. By Chairwoman Anderson, is there a second? Second by Delegate Lester, yes, members of the committee, any questions? Chairwoman Anderson has the right.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Appreciate it, Chair. And, if you could just get the mic closer. Thank you. Too much, loud music makes me, hard time following. So I wanted to ask, at your last report, the committee talked about your internal process and how you use an Excel, system instead of the FMIS. So, as you are making reimbursements, what policy do you follow? And has any, now, I know that you're new to this position, this current position, what could be what is the internal conversation that you're having with your team to develop a policy to try to address some of the challenges that we're seeing with the reimbursement, or how the fleet management utilizes fleet hours? Okay, thank you.
Get a shed at your own neighborhood for Friday, go back to Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question to Honorable Quadri. When I came into this position, there was no standard operating procedures. Everything was kind of kept in-house, it's all been verbal. We are devising a standing operating procedure on how to take care and address some of these issues that we are facing currently. In addition to that, it'll cover our operations, just standard operations that we provide to the navigation as far as vehicle acquisition, as far as vehicle rental, as far as vehicle managers, as far as dealing with the various locations throughout the fire agency as well, including Keyenta. Some of those things will address them on the standard operating procedures and operation as well. Thank you.
And then just a time of, that's all I'm doing.
Okay, thank you, Mr. William. I'm gonna go to the Department of Justice to further advise budget and finance committee. Mr. Rodas, do you have any recommendations for fleet management and to the budget and finance committee? On certain procedures that need to be in place for this funding? Yeah. Mel, can you hear us?
Sorry, Madam Chair, can you repeat that, please?
Yeah, Mr. Rodas, for these funds that are at fleet management, do you have recommendations on what policies and procedures need to be put in place? Because at this time, Mr. Williams is sharing with me that there are none. So, do you have any recommendations for the program and for the committee on what needs to be established?
Madam Chair, I'm not involved in the fleet management department's advisement, but I would recommend that fleet management department work with their assigned attorney in the Human Services and Government Unit of DOJ to develop some procedures. And then if policies are needed, the policies I think would need to be approved by their oversight committee, but procedures can be developed at the department level. And then if we're talking about procurement, obviously, that would have to follow the Procurement Act and regulations as amended.
Okay, Mr. Roberts, did you hear the extent of the report where fleet management receives the rate, they receive the payments from the other programs on conservation, they receive the fund from fleet management, and then I don't know if you know or if they know if there's a fund management plan in place that governs this money. Because now, Mr. Williams shared with the Budget and Finance Committee that he reimbursed some of the programs who they miscalculated how much they should be paying. So why this is important is because there was an impact in FY 25 that impacted FY 26. And many of those programs, including the Navigation Police Department, they are having to see that there's no balance in the accounting mechanism between the two fiscal years. And the Office of the Controller is not one overseeing these funds, it's apparently overseen at the management. So what safeguards we create so that this is fixed for all programs? Mr. Rhodes.
Madam Chair, I can check now and see if there's a fund management plan. I'm not aware. But I can check that and see if there are specific provisions in a fund management plan that would speak to this.
Thank you, Mr. Rhodes. If you pull that up and let us know and you can get a hold of that, could you send that over to the committee? And then maybe what we need to do is take a look at that, so it can be revised. But I'll work with the committee on that. Sure, if we're right, do you have any additional questions?
Chair, appreciate it, understanding the financial impact. I would just like to know what could be the timeline that the committee should expect, those policies to be developed. I don't think they did a legislative concern. But if, we need a directive, Chair, just for that timeline, so we can follow up and move forward. Thank you.
That's.
It's the NQR. Yeah, but it's us.
Proprietary, yes.
Yeah,
Oh, they collected.
are we directly there? Is general services, is it
Those are asset management. Is under us, yes.
or has?
Hess is our oversight.
We're under that. It's kind of, yeah, I'm trying to.
Like the fixed spots are under cuts, like for HR.
So they're not, yeah, they're like, like when you purchase a home site lease, you pay. That payment's the proprietary. That's what they use.
It's insurance.
Yeah. It's right, but it's free, yeah.
Yeah, it's not under us. If you know.
Maybe just give me something that.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Bologna, Mr. Rhodes, and also Mr. Taki. So the advisement of OLS, at this time, fleet management is under Cassie. And so the request from the members of the Budget and Finance Committee is for, fleet management to respond back to your oversight, to update those policies and procedures. So the committee is, they're recommending that we, as Budget and Finance, we send a letter to Jesse to inform them that this needs to be done as soon as possible. But I would like to share everything as a private short offer as directive or, other.
Appreciate chair colleagues, I would just ask staff, to send out that courtesy memo. And when we start, going over budgets in April. If this hasn't been created. Then we could, when we. Entertain the division of general services budget, we could add a state concern or division of appropriation. So that could be the timeline, that's usually in June, July.
Okay.
Thank you. Oh, and you monitor that, read that. Giving concerns. Giving concerns.
All right, thank you, Chairman Amber Nesbitt Friday. It looks like we're already starting our to-do list for FY 27 budget. Thank you, Mr. Hildan, for the update. We'll be looking forward to your updated procedures and policies. You don't need to wait for the letters to go to us, but if you guys are proactive and start that, that'd be great. And then we can, because the Budget and Finance Committee, we will definitely be watching this when the oversight hearings are happening. We'll be watching the proprietary fund. We should make sure that those funds are there and being watched. So right now, that's the recommendation that we have. We just make additional recommendations. All right, so, this, go ahead, Sheldon.
Just to let you know, Honorable Chair, a lot of the things that we're gonna develop, it's dependent upon the financial software. Right now, we're in FMIS, and we understand that's gonna move away. And we're gonna move towards ERP dynamics and stuff like that, and we're waiting for that to start and how it works out and how that's gonna intertwine with our standing operating procedures as well. So just to let you know, in addition to that, the information that we put into our access program, there was a human error that brought about this, disarraying the accounts and stuff like that. It's probably just like what we're experiencing right now in the Dayforce. A lot of folks didn't get paid, a lot of folks that got overpaid and stuff like that. So the software in the program is good, but it's just the information that was put in there. So, but that's being corrected as well. And my folks are being trained at your advisement too as well. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you, Mr. Milan, for your additional comments. Controller Sean McCabe is gonna call. All right, Mr. McCabe, this is another program, you'll have to work closely with regarding their funds. So Mr. McCabe is overseeing the implementation of the ERP. I just don't want this program to go to the wayside. This is an issue, we've seen this reoccur, not only in this, 25th council, but I think we also saw that in 25th, right? Yeah, the 24th council budget and finance committee also flagged this as well. So we just need to make sure there's measures to correct this. All right, Mr. Sean McCabe, are you there? Mr. Willie?
Yep, Chair, I'm here, Robert Willie.
All right, Mr. Willie, I did not hear a response from Mr. McCabe, so if you could just let him know that we need to continue to work with fleet management on the implementation of the ERP.
Okay, I will do. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Willie. Members of the committee, any further questions or comments on the report? Okay, hearing none, we have a plan to move forward, so thank you, Mr. Julian. We'll take the vote now, unless you have any additional comments.
No, just thank you all for allowing us to provide a report. Thank you for your guidance, too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Julian. Delegate Roman Gay, how do you vote? Delegate Roman Gay votes green, Delegate Shelley Yazzie, how do you vote? Green. Delegate Shelley Yazzie votes green, Chairman Everett Friday, how do you vote? Green. Chairman Everett Friday votes green, and Delegate Lester Yazzie, how do you vote?
Madam Chair.
Delegate Lester Yazzie votes green. Yeah, 4 members voting affirmative, 1 member excused, myself not voting, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Julian, and we'll continue working. Okay, next we have the Division of Human Resources, or second report this morning.
Madam Chair, this is Controller. Can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. McDade.
Sorry, my mic wasn't working. I'm on.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McDade. We just need to work with all the business units who have proprietary funds. They're coming up with some issues, so not just Division of General Services, but also there's a few of the Division of Natural Resources. You gotta make sure that they're following the questions. Okay, now we're on report B, report from the Division of Human Resources and the Department of Personnel Management and the personnel budget challenges for fiscal year 2026. This is a highly anticipated report from this body on challenges we face. The committee requested a report from this body back in December when the beginning stages of the implementation of Dayforce. And so this report is to give the committee an update on where that implementation is. And the concerns we continue to see, but we want to hear directly from the division to see what they are doing. We also have people on the call as well, so there are any further questions regarding that. All right, speaking first, we have this body that's gonna lead this report. We also have and Denali, our former council delegate, also who is the division human resources, and I see Ms. Victim, and also Mr. Claus here too. So welcome. Ms. Patty, the floor is yours.
Good morning, and thank you, Honorable Chair Parrish. I'm going to go ahead and begin with the Budget and Finance report regarding the personnel challenges that we've been experiencing within the Division of Human Resources, as well as the Department of Personnel Management. When the budgets were during the budget development process for FY 2026, we did request for funding for several projects, one being the annual subscription cost for the HRMS ERP system, another for the executive legislative personnel adjustment pool that was approved for all the vacant positions within the executive and legislative branches, as well as the costs for the implementation of the compensation study. And all of these were approved pursuant to CS 44-25 by the full Navajo Nation Council. However, after further review of the approved budgets, we found that these budgets were put under the wrong business unit number. Two of them, one being the HRMS ERP annual subscription costs, was placed under business unit number 1140,009, which is assigned to Department of Personnel Management. The other is the executive and legislative personnel adjustment pools that was also placed under DPM's business unit number. The third one, which is the implementation cost for the compensation or salary study, that one was placed under the Division of Human Resources, 114001. After further review of these budgets, we thought we met amongst ourselves, Division of Human Resources and the Department of Personnel Management. And at that time, we determined that it would be in the best interest of the Navajo Nation to request for a budget reallocation of the approved funds to in order to establish effective controls for accountability and integrity of the Navajo Nation budgets and funds. And this is pursuant to the 2026 Budget Instruction Manual at section 12C number 2. So what we did was we wrote a memo to our oversight committee and requesting their sponsorship and approval to assist us in addressing the budget reallocation. The next page shows the budget allocations. The description, again, number 1 is the annual subscription for the HRMS system. The budgeted amount for that is at $6,455,513, which went under Department of Personnel Management's business unit number. Although there was an existing fixed cost budget already in place, and that was indicated on the budgets when we submitted them through the process. It should have been put into 118037. Number 2, the executive personnel adjustment funds in the amount of $11,319,678 was also put under DPM's account. This is a new business unit number. And when we prepared the business unit or the budgets, we did indicate that this was going to be a new budget. The other was the legislative personnel. That one was in the amount of $424,981. Again, it went under DPM. And a new business unit number should have been developed. The salary or compensation study, $8,041,630 was put under the Division of Human Resources business unit. And we requested that a new business unit number be established. So we thought it was going to be we were going to be able to use the budgets that were submitted during the budget development process. However, that did not occur. We do have another chart showing the challenges. It's basically the same thing. And we have a description of the changes, which I just explained here a few minutes ago. However, we have another business unit number, which is 118015. This is the class and pay plan study plan. And during the budget process, we did receive $1,557,715. And this is a budget that has been approved for the past 2 fiscal years, and it's to pay for step increase recommendations or step increases merit pay bonuses. This is all based on performance. And these funds, have been monitored and have been, approved for the past 3 years. So there is an existing business unit number. But the issue we have with this one is, in FY 25. There was a provision which, an administrative process that was approved for us to, for the Office of Management and Budget, as well as, Office of the Controller and DPM to process these changes. However, in this fiscal year, FY 26, OMB reviewed the information, and at that time, the analysis completed by Executive Director Dominic Vial, he indicated that this is a budget reallocation. And, since there's no, administrative process indicated in the budget instruction manual or the, legislation for the approved budget. So we jointly issued a memo and we're requesting from, Chair Parrish, an administrative process. I do have a copy of that letter attached. And
That's too small for me. I have a bigger phone.
Requesting a copy of the year number to
to James, yes, it's attached.
Yeah, but it's.
But these are too small, yeah, okay, I can have them make copies of this. Oh, you're,
The one that's long piece of it.
yeah, they want the Vince letter.
Oh, no, not that one.
In my proposal, everything is. We could just prepare this whole thing. Okay, so she will be handing out a copy of the letter that came from OMB. And the last one is business unit number 107034, which is ARPA positions that we have within the Division of Human Resources. And that one was a budget in the amount of $2,266,806. And this, these funds are being monitored by Office of the Controller. However, we have reached out to them and we will continue to work with them on trying to get the 6 positions that we have. Those positions were funded for the, to assist with the ERP system. And moving on to the next one is the budget reallocation memo. We did send an original memo on October 23rd, 2025. However, we modified our budget, our memo, and that one is dated December 4th. After we submitted this information to our sponsor or for review by our sponsor, Honorable Vince James, we and he submitted the packet to Office of Chief Legislative Counsel. And on January 14th, they requested that we do budget revision requests instead of our budget process that we originally started out with. As of today, these budget revision requests were submitted for all 3 budgets that I just covered. However, nothing's come out of the Office of Legislative Counsel. We did reach out to the HES committee chair. However, he responded saying that it's still there, but he would do a follow-up with the, Office of Legislative Counsel on what the status is. In the meantime, we do have, requests for, use of the Personnel Adjustment Fund. And, we went ahead and approved on paper the amounts that are being requested by the programs. Just to allow them to go ahead and start reclassifying if they, or I'm sorry, classifying the positions if they haven't been classified. And so, and also to begin the advertisement of their vacant positions. So we are in dire need of all of these budgets reallocations to be completed so that we can start paying out some or transferring the money. The other one is the step increases and merit pay are the bonuses. Those we have quite a bit of them that are pending because this became effective on October 1st. And as we complete the budget revision requests, they're being held up at OMB. And that was why the memo was issued. So the next page is just basically explaining what I did explain earlier. The process in FY 26, which allowed an administrative process to be utilized. And then in FY 26, the since the budget resolution does not include a paragraph to allow such a process. And because the step increases are moving funds from business unit number 118015 to the respective employee budget. This would be a reallocation requiring oversight committee approval. And depending on when the step increases are recommended, we could have recommendations going every month to OMB. And in the memo, we indicate that the legislation is time consuming if we were to ask for a budget resolution or budget reallocation. So we were again recommending a provision to be approved to allow the administrative process. And based on conversation with Mr. Bial and his reach out to Legislative Council as well as the Department of Justice, they both advised that the most feasible way to get this done was to amend the current budget instruction manual. But as we were saying that it's time consuming and laborious to get it done. And as you can see here, we started this process in October and we're now in February and none of these have been changed or addressed yet. I did attach a copy of the memo that was sent to Chair Parrish, which was on December 17th, and with a copy to Mel Rodas as well as Kristen Roll. So this is our report regarding the budget reallocations that need to be completed. Thank you.
I thank you, Ms. Toddy, for the report this morning, members of the budget and finance committee. Is there a motion to accept the report this morning? Motion by Chairman Member Vesper Friday, there's second. Second by Doug Leslie Rossi. Over to the budget and finance committee. At the end of the report, you'll see a memorandum sent to me. And in that memorandum, it's essentially this report that we see in front of you. And so I did meet with Ms. Toddy in December, and I explained to Ms. Toddy that the budget and finance committee had dealt with a similar situation with DHR and the judicial DHR last year. And the committee's advisement to DHR and the judicial DHR and to OMB, which is to get it done. Was just to create the business unit, we didn't need to do it directed, and OMB needed to accomplish that. And so I told Ms. Toddy that is how we handled it in the past, and that's how OMB should continue to handle these issues. Because creating a legislation is unnecessary for budget reallocation. This is not moving money from another branch into this branch. It's within their own. They're just creating a new business unit. You can see the 3 pots where they need to separate their money. Because in the DHR administrative business unit, they have more than $8 million sitting there. And so for auditing purposes, they just requested to OMB to separate their business unit. So that it doesn't look like there's $8 million sitting in that administrative DHR budget. That doesn't look right, and that's not what it was appropriated for. As you can see in the comprehensive budget, we did not allocate $8 million for the DHR administration. We allocated money for the pools, so all the schools are in that administrative budget, this will. So that's why, I've shared this advisement with Ms. Toddy, but it's still going on deaf ears with OMB. So I bring this to the committee as a committee concern because OMB has continued to be our oversight, and I wanted to share this with you as we contemplate other issues with OMB and how we can straighten this out. I do have their plan of operation pulled out in front of me. It's on their OMB website. And their number one responsibility is to direct and coordinate the annual application budget development process. You can see that throughout their plan of operation in the budgeting section and their overall mission. So the concern, I was raised with a committee, with OMB, who I don't know if we need to straighten out that language or, what we need to move forward, with this discussion as it continues to be an issue. So I leave it to the committee for any additional questions. As you've heard, Ms. Toddy has reached out to Chairman James for a budget revision request. That's another bird. However, this could also easily be fixed. In my mind, I could be wrong. It could be fixed by creating a new business unit and also doing it administratively. As it was fixed in the CR, that was a part of Ms. Toddy's report today. So members of the committee, that's some additional background on the memorandum as a part of the report. Does anyone else have any questions? Sure, I heard from Ms. Rivera.
Thank you, Chair, for those recommendations. I appreciate it. Mayor, for the report, and Honorable Quinal Shimon for being here with us as deputy. So let me, because it's different protocols, the BIM, the budget revision process states that. Because they're referring those issues here. So budget revision. Currently, what's the process? And I understand they're asking for a BIM amendment to be able to do this administratively. So I just want to make sure first, I don't know if that's or advice, you know, if I could ask, what are the BIM requirements for a budget reallocation? And I'm not sure if Claire James has submitted a request, a service request for legislation. And my third question would be, I'm going back to my notes with the comprehensive budget. And I thought it was my understanding that OMB, DHR, Office of the Controller, they would develop an administrative process. That was, so I'm not sure what, if that's what's impact, or that HR administration is just saying, we don't want this reflected on our administrative budget, which is understandable because then they'll be responsible for the expenditure rate, right? They'll skew their data. So I understand the request. I'm just trying to understand the directive to OMB. And because if we direct it to create that new business unit, then it's just now OMB saying, before they create that new business unit, they want this to go before the committee. Just trying to briefly understand what the ask is and how the committee can help. Actually,
It could be in drafting or it could be in legislation. So do you want, first I'll go to Kristen Todd. All right, I'm gonna first go to Mr. Toppy and then Ms. Nez could prepare a response to that question. Because now DHR is saying that OMB is advising them to do it for through legislation. And I don't know if that was your decision or Mr. Bial, but if it's Mr. Bial's, maybe you have to come down and respond to the question, must have a response. Mr. Toppy, if you could start with that advisement regarding the bird versus budget reallocation.
Madam Chairman of the Budget and Finance Committee, I would defer to Office of Management of Budget, she's here right now, so she's the person that answers those questions.
Okay. Anyone else on from voting?
Honey, so she's online as well.
All right, Ms. Tanya Sosi, could you answer the committee's question on the difference between a budget reallocation and a budget revision request to legislation? Ms. Eileen is busy assisting the division of P30 specialists. So Ms. Sosi, could you provide a general response on the difference in budget revisions?
Madam Chair. Can I make a clarification real quick?
Okay, 1 second, let me see if this is. Ms. Sosi? All right, maybe since Ms. Sosi's not responding, Ms. Nez, do you have the bandwidth?
Yeah.
Okay, so the first question was regarding the difference between budget reallocation and budget optimization. First, I'm gonna go to Ms. Toddy to clarify statements, and then I'll come back to you, Ms. Nez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The clarification that I'd like to make is that the budget revision requests were requested by the Office of Legislative Counsel on January 14th, and we submitted those back to them on the 16th.
Okay. Okay, I guess the clarifying statement is that DHR thought it was a budget reallocation. DHR thought it was a budget reallocation. But then the sponsor of that legislation, Dr. OLC and OLC advised for. Okay, and then now the committee is asking whether it's a bird through a legislation or a directed district budget. Whatever is quicker and why OMB is asking for the bird legislation, because if we can fix it through a directive today, then it's a directive we can pass today. But the question is why OMB is asking for the bird legislation for that process. So Ms. Nez?
Is it OMC or OLC?
OLC. OLC.
Let me clarify though. So DHR came to Tim and James and said, OMB told them it's budget that. That was their first initial advisement. Budget allocation. Then OLC said, no, we think it's a bird. So OLC initiated it and said, we're gonna go back to OMB for the bird ones for the legislation. So I guess. Want OLC to respond on why it would be bird legislation for the regenerative. All right, okay. Do you want the difference from OMB definition or do you still want to see this?
Well, right now, we'll see if there's the one asking for this, and then I could look it up later, the whole week.
Okay, thanks. Michelle Espino, could you advise the committee why OLC would like to move forward with the legislation on, regarding Chairman James's request versus, if we could get this done today with the Director of Budget and Finance Committee?
Sure. So Chair Parrish, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I inherited this from Miss Lowell, and I do see in our records at OLC that we did receive a legislation request to do a budget reallocation. And it's within the Division of Human Resources, and it's from business unit to a new business unit. And so this legislation request was completed, and it's just waiting for pickup from the sponsor. But to answer your question, that advice most likely came from Miss Lowell after consulting with the sponsor, and I don't know if she spoke with Miss Toddy as well. However, what this legislation does is it's creating new business units or reallocating funds from an existing business unit to a new business unit. And it looks like it's several current business units where funds are being transferred. I don't know if that answered your question, but that's the information that I have, Chair.
Says, I'm gonna further and go down this rabbit hole. All right, so if you read the comprehensive budget from FY 2026, you'll see the outline and directions for the vacancy pools. And if you read that section, the question from the committee today, the partial question from the committee, what I've heard is that when you go back to the comprehensive budget, you read the legislation and you read how THR, OMB, and ONC were to work together so that these pools would be established. It does not explicitly say that OMB will do this, THR will do this, or OOC will do this. It directs them to work together. So to avoid an additional legislation that's a bird, what I hear today is that it's unnecessary because we've already directed the programs to establish this process. So the question back to OLC is why would OLC, knowing the comprehensive budget, entertain an additional legislation from Chairman James when they should have already been done previously? And the follow-up question B to that is, can this be fixed today in the directive? For clarification, so Mrs. Espino?
I think that was a very good explanation, Chair. I get it, so I don't understand why our office went ahead and went forward with the BRR since you said, as you said, that directive already exists. So at this point, I would just need to get back. Well, as you know, Ms. Lowell's no longer with our office, but probably with the other entities to find out why they didn't just coordinate and went forward with this reallocation request or legislation.
Yeah.
So it sounds like if there's already a directive that is in place, that this legislation wasn't necessary.
Okay, Ms. Nez, Better Canterbury, thank you, Mrs. Pino, please stay on the line to hear the rest of the conversation. Ms. Nez?
Good afternoon, I just want to read, my name is Eileen Ness. I'm one of the senior budget analysts from ONB. In the budget manual for 2026, page 25, talks about the budget revision.
Please forgive me, Mike, sorry.
So. Good afternoon. It's good to see you guys for the in the file.
Yeah.
My name is Eileen Naz. I'm one of the senior budget analysts from ONB. And the question on the budget revision, it's indicated in the FY 26 budget instruction manual. on page 25, section 12. And C2, it states that budget reallocation, the transfer or reallocation of budget funds between business units which shall require oversight committee's approval before the budget reallocation can be processed. Yeah, then the remainder sentence at the end says budget reallocation should be processed on a quarterly basis. Based on that, that's what our executive director was, wanting, approval for you guys was. Okay,
All right, thank you, Ms. Nez, for reading the budget instruction manual. So members of the Budget and Finance Committee, I pulled up resolution CS 4425. That is the FY 26 comprehensive budget. And under CS 4425, under section 2, it's not even section 1, section 2, the very first section in which we allocate money from, section 2H, under personal lapse savings fund. Number 2, it says disbursements from the pool shall be handled administratively without additional legislation through a process developed by OMB, DPM, Judicial Branch, Human Resources, in consultation with the Department of Justice. The process developed by all respective parties shall be completed no more than 30 days once the legislation is signed into law. A memo detailing the process developed shall be released by each branch. So this report highlights that OMB, DHR, DPM, the judicial branch, and OOC are not following the law. They need to create a process. So, Michelle, is there any additional language you need to advise DHR or Chair James? Because now reading it from this resolution, to me, it sounds like there is no further legislation necessary.
Yeah.
I agree with that. And it looks like Mel's trying to speak to this as well. But yes, I agree.
All right, thank you, Michelle. We'll go to Mr. Rhodes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the committee. So, Madam Chair, this section that you're reading, the budget resolution, section 2, section 2H2. I'm sorry? Madam Chair, did you say something? Okay. Sorry, the section that you're referring to, ma'am, in the comprehensive budget resolution at 2H2, that's referring to administrative procedures that need to be developed for Exhibit G1. And Exhibit G1 is the vacancy pool. So in the vacancy pool, yes, ma'am, you are correct that required administrative procedures, and DHR, OMB, OOC, and DOJ worked together and did create those procedures for the vacancy. But there wasn't a provision that allowed for administrative procedures to be created for the step increases and merit bonuses. And so Ms. Toddy is saying there's a problem with budget reallocations for the step increase, because merit bonuses can be, that's a one-shot deal for a merit bonus. So the merit bonuses can be paid out of that business unit of DHR. But with the step increases, because that's ongoing, those are salary changes, salary adjustments, and those salaries are going to have to be paid over time. That would be a budget reallocation, because the money would be going from the business unit of the salary adjustment pool to the business unit of the program that's giving the salary adjustment. I hope that's clear. So I think that it does require a budget reallocation because it's a BU to a BU transfer. And that requires, per the BIM, that requires oversight committee approval. Thank you, ma'am.
11,
Yeah. So you have three.
11, 15. And then the other one, we do have procedures on how to do the executive personnel adjustment pool. We did establish procedures.
Okay. Well, I think that's also, that may be a response to one of their concerns, but they have 5 different concerns listed on the report. And 2 of them could be resolved by creating a new business unit. So what you're saying, that is a part of the problem, but that is not the whole problem. So the bird, I guess I can't speak to that legislation, but when I talked to Ms. Toddy, she just expressed that she has all this money in the DHR admin business unit, and she doesn't want it sitting there because that's not her money. She needs a separate business unit for the legislative executive pool, and then the judicial branch needs their own business unit. But the response back from OMB is that it's not in the legislation. So I'm trying to sort through that problem first before we get to the step increases and bonuses. To help clarify that, Mel, do you see what I'm saying? Maybe we'll send a report to you, Mr. Roberts, so you can also see what's in front of us, to help clarify that.
Okay, so,
Chair Gardy?
so Chair, this report is here for the committee because executive programs are not agreed? Or are we here for this report to anticipate a legislation that's ready for the sponsor? I don't want to do executive work. They get paid high dollars, that's their job. Okay. If the law says it has to come back to legislate, I'm fine with it, let's move forward, we just want to expedite. And if the request is an administrative process, then I don't see language for that draft administrative process. And so I appreciate that you're trying to get it done here, but I just want to know that we're doing executive stuff. Yeah, so, you need any support from the committee right now, Chair Parrish? Before moving forward.
Thank you, Chair Representative Gardy. You're absolutely right. This is an administrative function. It is in the resolution itself that they should resolve these issues administratively. I have not received any correspondence directly from the Office of Management and Budget on this issue, even though it is in their plan of operation to advise the Budget and Finance Committee when there are issues, and I'll read their plan of operation of where it says under responsibilities and authorities. It says under responsibilities and authorities, A, the Office Management and Budget is responsible to, number 6, present and propose policies or legislations pertaining to financial and fiscal management of the Navajo Nation for approval by the Budget and Finance Committee. And I have not heard directly from OMB on their solutions to this problem. I have heard directly from the Division of Human Resources, who is in this standstill with trying to move forward with OMB, but I have not heard any recommendations from OMB themselves. So I raise this to the committee as a concern for our legislative oversight over OMB. And whether this can be fixed, this issue itself can be fixed with legislation. That was not my intent quite yet, because I did not request that as a legislation. I believe that there is clear language in the comprehensive budget and under the responsibilities of the plan of operation for OMB to resolve this with DHR. That's where I believe that how this could be resolved. But I raise this to the committee as this is also our legislative side. DHR and the rules was created by this committee and it's approved by the council and signed by the president. That was not my veto. So there should be coordination among the divisions And I appreciate Ms. Tommy's willingness to come forward and to share this as a concern. But I don't hear OMB, I don't hear OMB's response or, even Office of the Controller. I don't hear any movement from the Office of the Controller on how both of them are coordinating with DHRs with staff this. I have not received those procedures assigned to each of the branches, so I guess this is a reflection for the committee too on the comprehensive budget. On how we're trying to be proactive and trying to allow for more flexibility among the divisions so that they can be proactive to establish this. But this is, I guess, also a reflection of where and how fast they can get their policies together. I think DOJ and OLC are also listening to this conversation because we need to be careful with how we approach legislation. Because sometimes as we've seen today in our own agenda, that most legislation are kind of just manufactured. They're not thoughtfully considered before consulting with the sponsor or taking that into consideration when we are looking at financial matters, especially the fiscal responsibility of the Navajo Nation. So we're spending, an hour and a half discussing a process that could have been resolved if everyone just read the comprehensive budget. So that's my response to your party. Do you have any additional questions? Thank you. Yeah, just questions. Questions? All right, so OMB and OOC, I don't know if I need to write a memorandum to you all to ask for a response, but I expect that it's clearly stated in the responsibilities and authorities in your plans of operations to advise the committee. And also to be on top of the budget, so, go to Chair Friday.
Thank you. So Chair, Budget and Finance, we are the oversight of Office of Management and Budget. But, the Executive Director, Mr. Vial, his direct supervisor is President Knight. So it can come before the committee, but we should be the last resort. There should be a meeting that President Nygren pulls together his division directors. The executive director of OMB, I'm not sure if he attends the division director meetings. And, other impacted parties. And have a clear way forward. So I completely understand that these are our oversights, but we're not their managers. That's President Nygren. So, I don't think President Nygren's staff is on call.
Yes,
Mr. Margie,
so I just on the call.
okay, so if I could ask Mr. Margie, what has been done regarding this issue, so it's on our agenda? And how, President's gonna move forward with this issue, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman Amber Pescari. I'll go to Mr. Largy to respond to the question.
I'm turning all those fingers in this way as well.
Well, we can help. Mr. Largy? Mr. Largy, are you on call? Is OPBP on call? Ms. Blackwater? Fifth call for the Office of the President, Vice President. If Mr. Largy's not on the call, you can take him off the call because he's not responding. Well, maybe it's his connection. I don't know if it's his connection, but he needs to reconnect, so he can respond. All right. No response from the Office of the President, Vice President. If someone reconnects and wants to reestablish the communication, that'd be great, because we do need help with this. It's almost the end of the second quarter. So DHR is sitting there with more than their allocated budget. And I don't want that to reflect badly on our audit as well. So I see Mr. Rodas' hand is raised, and then I'm gonna go to Mr. Sean McCabe for any input on this. So Mr. Rodas?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So I advised OMB and DHR about this after consulting with Ms. Kristen Lowell. And so we determined that that provision in the comprehensive budget that spoke to the creation of administrative procedures that only applied to the vacancy pool. And there's no provision on establishing administrative procedures for the other pools. And there's no administrative procedure for the step increases on merit bonuses pool. So that's one thing. The other thing is, in terms of the business units that should have been identified as new DHR business units, but were actually identified as existing DPM business units. One way to handle that would be to do a budget reallocation that's approved by the Legislative Oversight Committee of DHR. Another way to handle it is if OMB decides that those truly were errors. In other words, if OMB acknowledges that those in the budget, it should have said business unit new instead of the number for DPM, then perhaps that could be handled as a directive for, a directive from the committee to OMB to correct an error. But if it was not an error, then you can't use the committee can't use a directive to do a budget reallocation. It would have to be a legislation. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee.
This is administratively, it doesn't say administrative. You're saying it still has to be fixed legislation.
Good afternoon, everybody. I know Igor was promoting on the stuff that it hasn't, I'm sorry. CS 4425 on page 407 from the paragraph that we're referring to. I know later in the paragraph, it talks about that the process should be developed by these parties no more than 30 days once the proposed legislation is signed into law. So I don't know if, I want to know also, has the groups started to, again, according to the policy and procedures or method of operations, have they started to work together to come up with this? With this process that, as council be allowed to do this, say, you know your program well enough. And council approved this administrative process. I want to see some of the work that they've been doing and how they've been working together, and that would be the OMB, Office of the Controller, names, Department of Personal Management, Judicial, HR, Resources. Have they all started to sit down together to come up with this process? Because it does also say in this legislation, or sorry, in this resolution that they shall work together, and they were given the 30 days to really work on this, come up with something afterwards. Instead, we're now here, I'm trying to figure out again, if this is going to be a legislation or how we're gonna move forward
But I mean, we should have been working on it. You know, maybe the 3 days after this legislation was signed into law to do this process.
You can delegate Shirley Yazzie, I'll go back to the Division of Human Resources. They have to use documentation for that. This body.
From the administrator.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In response to Sherilyn, Delegate Sherilyn Yazie's question relating to the procedures, the procedures were developed. And we did seek advice or meet with the Office of Management and Budget, OOC, as well as Mal Rodas. And I requested that Ramondo email a copy of that to Mr. Tahi for your information. But the procedures are complete on how the executive personnel adjustment pool is going to work. The only issue we have with that account is we wanted a new business unit number. The personnel adjustment pool for legislative has 424,981. And because we handle both personnel and or executive and legislative, it's part of the one that we're asking for a new business unit number 4, so we can track legislative separately from executive. So all we need on that one would be a new business unit number.
The procedures.
The procedures are developed, and that's the one I asked Mr. Claude to forward to Mr. Tahi.
So Ms. Tyler, you just have legislative and judicial personnel pool procedures developed.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, and then the statement with the judicial branches on follow. Has a judicial branch also developed their procedures? Ms. Davis?
Madam Chair, good morning, and members of the Budget and Finance Committee. Yes, we have our procedures in place for the vacancy pool.
Your topic will be asking for a copy of your procedures that says to see what that looks like and how we can move forward from this. Still have an issue, but maybe I'll talk to Mr. Rodas later, but the first word of that H2 is disbursements from. It doesn't say policies or procedures to disperse. It's an action, so disbursements from the pool shall be handled administratively. It's not procedures for disbursements or policies to disperse from the pool. It isn't, that's not the first word of H2. First word is disbursements from the pool shall be handled administratively. So I don't know why that's a holdup or that's hindering OMB from creating a separate business unit for these pools. Because that's at least the quickest way to help them resolve their first issue. Everything else, yes, that may be a bird, that may be something that we have to recalculate. But my issue is that those new business units have not been created. And I don't understand from the Department of Justice because the first word is disbursements from, not policies for disbursements, not procedures for disbursements. It just says disbursements from the pool shall be handled administratively. Without any additional legislation. That is through. So it establishes that disbursements have to be made and then through a process. So I don't know, Mr. Otis, I'm gonna have to talk to you after, because I don't want to belabor this, the Budget and Finance Committee has several legislations to act on. If we don't have legislation, I think we don't have a question. Mr. Fox, did you receive a response to this? And only. If you reach out.
So we're done, please.
Okay. Maybe we do have.
All the time.
OMB has responded to BCB yet.
Second bunch.
Mr. Otis, did you, help clarify your understanding of that H2?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the business units, if you look at Exhibit G and girl, the column that says business units, that identifies specific business units. And Ms. Toddy is saying some of those business units should have been identified as new, but Exhibit G actually put the wrong business units.
Apology or microphone, we're trying to make your audio more clear.
Side.
Mr. Otis, maybe you need to take 2 steps to the right for better signal.
Sorry, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, I didn't get-
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna retire the,
We need a Gallup campus audio.
go ahead, Mr. Otis.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. So looking at the comprehensive budget resolution, Exhibit G as in girl, that's the personnel lab savings account allocations for FY 2026. And I believe that what Ms. Toddy is saying is that some of the business units should have been identified as new. But instead, the business units were identified as existing business units, and some of the numbers were wrong. So that's one issue. And then the other issue is the administrative procedures for the vacancy pool are in place, and those are good, and we met the deadline for that. That was prescribed in the comprehensive budget resolution. So the vacancy pool procedures aren't the problem. The issue is that there's no allowance for administrative procedures for the step increases and merit pay. So that's another issue. We've got the business unit problem where it's an identified number versus a new business unit, and then we have the issue of there's administrative procedures for the vacancy pool, but not for the other pool.
Hold on, Mr. Otis, I'm just getting clarification from Ms. Toddy, because Ms. Toddy is telling me that the vacancy pool, new business units have not been set up. Is that correct, Ms. Toddy?
Yes, we don't have a new business unit.
Okay, Mr. Otis, they do not have a new business unit for the executive branch vacancy pool. So that has not been done.
Correct, because another business unit was identified.
Sorry, what was that?
Another business unit was identified. The wrong business unit was identified, where it should have said new business unit, but instead it had a number of an existing business unit.
Okay. That may be so, but it also says in the resolution that this will be taken care of administratively without additional legislation. So,
And that just refers to the vacancy pool, though.
yes, I'm just concerned about making people right now. That's it. I'm just worried about creating a new business unit, trying to get that millions of dollars out of the HR administrative business unit. I don't understand the holdup of why only can't create the business unit administratively without legislation to move the proper allocation from the comprehensive budget into that account. That's step one. I don't know why that's an issue right now.
Ma'am, should I respond?
Yeah, go ahead. Mr. Rhodes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. It's because that would be, in my opinion, a reallocation. Because the business unit was identified in the budget instead of it saying new. If it said new and OMB hadn't set up a new business unit, then that would be a problem. But it didn't say new. It identified an existing business unit. And so now we're talking about taking money out of the business unit that was identified in the budget and putting it into another business unit. And to me, that's a reallocation. But that's why I was saying, if OMB, if they had a memo or something and said that we identified that business unit in the budget by error, that wasn't, we believe that wasn't the legislative intent or something like that, then maybe that could be handled through a directive of some sort. But I don't think that's where we are right now. I think that the business unit was set forth in the comprehensive budget, and now we're talking about moving the funds into a new business unit. But the comprehensive budget didn't say new business unit.
Right, Mr. Rhodes, so at the bottom of G1, you'll see it says prepared by OMB budget section September 4, 2025. So my question to DOJ is, the role of DOJ is just to advise, not to say this is how you do it. Your role is just to advise OMB. What empowers OMB to say, oh, I created this document, I know what I did here, I know that it's used from my exhibit, I know what I put in the legislation because I was at those meetings, and I can show you the sign-in sheets when we established this, that we were all in discussion, this is the intent. There's no other magic computer or anything, because this came from OMB and THR themselves. This did not come from a single council delegate. This was a discussion between several, including OOC. They had a conversation amongst themselves on how they could deal with these vacancies. So DOJ is just advising OMB how to do this. So using the language in this resolution, they were part of the drafting of the comprehensive budget. My request is that you advise them to use their authorities in their plan of operation so they can fulfill their duties administratively, as it says in this resolution. It's not even what I'm saying, this resolution says that. Chair Slater.
Mr. Rose, so in your estimation, two options, one to the legislative borough, and two, if OMB came back and said this is a administrative error in the drafting budget, then it could be completed administratively, right?
Mel, did you hear Vice Chair Slater?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Vice Chair, for the question. So I think that if OMB came back and said there was an error in the budget, it should have identified the business unit as new instead of the number that it was, then perhaps a directive to OMB to make the correction of the error would be sufficient. I don't think that OMB doing it on their own would be sufficient, because that could be seen as an appropriation.
A usurpation of legislative appropriation authority,
Yeah.
right?
Correct.
He's protecting us.
Oh, he's protecting us.
Guys, one more. Mr. Rhodes, if that were the path that the program wanted to go down, if we got the program, do you think it'd be appropriate to send that notification to both S and BFC and receive some sort of directed concurrence for the administrative action going forward? Coming forward?
Mr. Rhodes?
I'm sorry, Vice Chair. I don't think I understood the question. Could you say that or repeat it?
Mel, so. Would it be appropriate to have a concurrence from PASS and from BFC? If OMB and the program came back and said, the documents we submitted were in error. And we are therefore seeking to resolve this administratively, we're seeking your concurrence.
Mr. Rivers, that's a question, whether it's another topic.
Okay. Thank you, Vice Chair, for the question. So if, and I haven't talked to OLC about the suggestion of handling directives. I'm not sure what OLC would think. And I also don't know if OMB thinks that this business unit was identified in error. But if hypothetically OMB said, yes, this business unit should have said new instead of DPM's business unit, then I think that OMB, and this is just my opinion, I haven't talked to OLC, I think BFC could direct OMB to change it to a new business unit. I don't think that Hess would necessarily need to concur because it's OMB who's establishing the new business unit, and the budget did not provide for the new business unit.
Thanks, Mel.
Thank you.
I would advise the Division of Human Resources and the Office of Management budget to do that. It's us and the. And then we can consider what we want to put on. I don't know if we do or concur.
All right, thank you, Vice Chair.
Please.
You want to keep it running, just so that. Yeah, I want to hear.
I think that's right. So where do you want to do? You want to do it that way? I think that's the best way.
I think you, Vice Chair Slater. All right, so we've all, I think, heard the process forward. And OMB can work with DHR to establish that if we are incorrect. And we're at the meetings with Ms. Elva Tom and Mr. Dominic Dial was there. Oh, actually, all the budget officers were there. We were all sitting at NDOT. And we were all reviewing every single business unit, all of us, we sat together and we all did the calculation. We all did this with OOC. I remember now, everyone, because we were literally reading line by line, how much everyone's vacancies are. Okay, so and Sam, we could work with Mr. Vial to explain the circumstances. You know, if that exhibit G should have said new, please write a memorandum, you know, DHR has already written a memorandum. So they've established that conversation with OMB. If OMB can respond back to DHR, and then we can just handle that here at the Budget and Finance Committee. Is that okay, Sam?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm sorry, Ms. Eileen, I know you are.
I was doing the same thing, I was following.
I think I did that with both of you, right? I accidentally took both of you, Ms. Sam, Ms. Nez, yeah. I'm sorry, Ms. Nez, but, do you have any questions to that?
The time when we were setting up the budgets. I know our former budget officer had volunteered and said. You have handful, I'll go ahead and help you, I'll help you with the DHR. But at the end, I noticed that these accounts were combined. And I did double check with one of our other officers. She's not acting and she says everything's okay. I gave her to find it. But I know Miss Tom had stated that we'll go ahead and I'll keep it as is and we'll go ahead and re-separate it with the new business unit until the budgets are approved, she says.
And then just stop there.
Yeah, so I just went on just to make shared it with one of our budget analysts. And I told her that, to really look at, see if everything was encumbered, okay. And she said yes, so then I didn't bother again.
All right.
So I guess it's on Oldby's air there. So if you let us switch, I guess we can. Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We work individually with the budget officers, they know their accounts, they know their business units, they know. So when another budget officer does steps in, sometimes they don't know the whole background on the business units. So Ms. Nez, if you could work with CHR, if you have to write a memorandum, so that you give the feedback back to budget and finance, and if if it's not clarified by then, Mr. Dial would like a directive back, then we can have a conversation, but I have confidence in you, Ms. Nez, that you can resolve this. So I'm going to go further. Is everyone okay now? We will exclude, untangled, at least just this part of the personnel pools. Or the body was sitting there, it's a $10 million budget. Okay, members of the committee, anyone else have any questions? You're good? Oh, seems debate, okay, sorry, Marvin. There was a question in a second. All right, okay, there are no further questions, we'll continue with Ms. Nez here and share this case resolved. Members of the committee, we have a motion second, let's do a roll call vote. Delegate Gay, votes green, Delegate Shirley Yazdi. Delegate Shirley Yazdi votes green, Chairwoman Amber Mr. Carter. I vote green, thank you. Chairwoman Amber Mr. Carter votes green, and Delegate Lester Yazdi, how do you vote? Delegate Lester Yazdi votes green, and Vice Chairman Crosser, how do you vote? Green. Vice Chairman Crosser votes green. We have 5 members voting in the affirmative. Five members voting affirmative, myself not voting, the motion carries on the report. Thank you to the Division of Human Resources and Office of Management and Budget, Department of Justice, LLC for the responses today. And let's streamline the process. Okay, thank you, Ms. Adi.
Thank you.
I need to get those back, those others, not you.
Okay.
Yeah, those are no problem.
All right, my question before we go on to the business is, updating the division, community development and DOJ and OLC on the.
Oh, yeah, well, that's why I said that, they said that there would be.
Okay, but it's just, you have to bring this.
Budget and finance committee with telling us we gotta get going. Honorable delegates, we're in NPA. Okay, for the record, you're back on the record at 12:38. Yeah, we have all members of the budget and finance committee present. Members of the committee, we are now, to give the folks listening online an update. We have not heard back from the Division of Community Development on the date of the projects were inputted. This was requested back in December, if not last year, year before. But the Division of Community Development is still right now putting that together. So the committee has requested that the listing of the dates, those projects have been put into our financial system, be provided to the committee. So they're working on that. All right. You're on business legislation 1426. So Tommy, if you can read that, oh, sorry, Ms. Nota, you can read that title for the record, just the title, please.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. This is the legislative summary sheet, track number 0014-26. Title of solutions act related to resource and development committee, budget and finance committee, committee and nomination council. Authorizing payment in lieu of taxes by the Phoenix Desert Power Solar Project and waiving the sales tax for NMC section 601. ETC business activity tax for NMC section 401 and possibly interest tax for NMC section 201 for the project. The purpose of this proposed resolution is to authorize payment in lieu of taxes for the Phoenix Desert Power Solar Project and waiving the sales tax for NMC section 601. Business activity tax for NMC section 401 and associated interest tax for NMC section 201 for the project. Madam Chair, this is final votes at nomination council in the Internet Public Review Summary Sheet first report. You have 3 comments in support, 1 comment opposing, 1 comment / recommendation. This legislation, number 014-26 was posted on January 16, 2026 at 12:41 p.m. 5-day comment period ended on January 21st, 2026. There is a second report. There are no comments supporting, 1 comment opposed, and no comments / recommendation. This legislation was being heard from Resource and Development Committee, dated February 2nd, 2026. Was the vote of 4 in favor, 0 opposed, and therefore referred to the Budget and Finance Committee. Madam Chair.
All right, we give this notes for reading the title of the record, members of the budget and finance committees or motion to consider the legislation approved. Motion by Delegate Norman Endigate, do I have a second? Second by Delegate Lester Yossi. Members of the budget and finance committee, and you all desire a presentation. I do. Right. Vice Chairman Carl Seger, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, colleagues, for the opportunity to present 1426. As we reviewed over this past year, working on a renewables and solar tax, the Navajo Nation's current tax code has no way of calculating renewable energy under its current laws and regulations. So there is a lack of clarity and certainty in how to interpret them, and also if and how they'd be applicable to renewables projects. Everything that we have set up at this point is really for extractive industry. And because the entities that the nation owns, like NTUA and their subsidiary Navajo Generation, are exempt from those taxes, where there is a lack of clarity, where there are issues, then they are able to move forward. Whereas if you want competition in a diverse ecosystem for energy development, you are not able to accomplish that because of that inconsistency in the laws and the regulations and the applicability. So you know that we move forward the solar generation, the renewables tax, and that ended up being concurrent with the nation engaging with the Commercial Law Development Program from the Department of Commerce. They go into developing countries and help advise them on the developments of their regimes for taxation, for project development, for commercial development, like they said. And they provided some advisement on ways that the nation can calculate and assess each project. And that's something that I continue to work on in refining that tax. In the interim, this is something that has been agreed to. This is a payment in lieu of taxes. So the taxes where there's no clarity and potential for applicability under a project. What we're doing is we've structured an agreement that's been signed off by the Minerals Department, by the Office of Navajo Tax Commission, by the Department of Justice, by all the relevant approving authorities within the nation. And it structures a deal that provides a very robust return back to the Navajo Nation and is complementary to the lease agreement that's already been signed and executed by the Resources and Development Committee. This project is approved by RDC, and at this point, this is the last remaining feature to have it move forward with full understanding and approval from the nation. Pilot agreements do exist, and they have moved forward in the past with the nation, and it's something that's really done on a case-by-case basis because of unique circumstances. And here we have a unique set of circumstances, and it requires the waiver of these different individual taxes for which there isn't clarity and certainty in how they would be applied. And so that's why it needs to move forward to full Navajo Nation Council consideration. This legislation did move out of the Resources and Development Committee yesterday on a consent agenda and is now before you today. And then we'll go to the Nabakeetik Committee, and then from there to Navajo Nation Council. The entity, the Painted Desert Power, they were trying to get a bid previously, and that window was missed. And now we're moving into the next window as a nation trying to support a project that has been executed. But they need tax certainty, and the nation needs to provide that tax certainty in order for there to be a successful, bid on or request for proposals from utilities. This project has nothing to do with data centers. It has nothing to do with anything other than connecting to utilities to provide electric power, provide payments back to the nation. And then there were very robust community benefits agreements that were also negotiated with the local communities. It's located on lands which have abandoned uranium mines and also have natural uranium outcroppings that are not safe for grazing and vegetation. The vegetation there is not safe. The area there is not appropriate for grazing. It's received all the appropriate checkoffs through this process, and that's why the lease was executed. I know that folks are trying to throw things in at the 11th hour I don't know, but everything is above board here. And I would just say because of in order to protect the Navajo Nation's negotiating posture and position with any entity moving forward that may seek a pilot, because there are many potential solar developers who are seeking to develop on the Navajo Nation. We don't want these figures to go out there and have them be used against us as we move forward potentially in other solar projects or renewables projects on the nation. So if the committee desires, we would have to enter into executive session to review the unredacted pilot agreement. Originally, this legislation was drafted without the pilot, but I thought it was important both for transparency to industry and our citizens that it be attached. And then secondarily, I wanted all of you to see it and not feel like a fast one was being pulled on you. So for whatever issues that may raise, I've included in this legislation, but you do have to redact the specific rate to protect the nation's posture when it comes to negotiating with other entities. So Navajo Power is here. They're the developer with AES, and Painted Desert Power is the project. And then Effiat City, the executive director of the Office of Navajo Tax Commission, is here, and I appreciate her sincerely wading through all of BFC throughout this time and dedicating an immense amount of time to all of my tax stuff that I've done between tobacco and solar over this past year. I know on the line, I believe that we have Assistant Attorney General Catherine Bilzowski, and she's available. She was working on this. I think the reason that Economic and Community Development Unit was working on it was because Mr. Rodis in the tax office was out for a period of time, and so those responsibilities went over there. She has remained involved. So I did mention earlier the Exhibit A needs to be replaced. That exhibit language has been distributed to the committee, and then secondarily, the redacted exhibit itself has been distributed to the committee. So, if you would like to go into executive session, that's completely the prerogative of the committee. If you would like to ask questions right now on the record or do that afterwards, I'm happy to do whatever you'd like. And there are people here who are able to answer your questions as well. So with that, I'll yield my time back to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Brasser, for the presentation today for 226. First, the Finance Committee, to have a and second established on the legislation. Would anyone like to ask questions? Chairman, everybody's okay? Okay.
Appreciate it, thank you. I am remembering, the conversation that we had with a few of, different companies that were interested in, solar development on Navajo Nation. And I believe it asked this committee to consider, modifying certain taxes so that it was economically viable for development on Navajo Nation. So I just wanted to ask in terms of, so the companies have some sense of what taxes would have, what taxes Navajo Nation currently had and how that would impact their development. But I'm not clear in your statement when you mentioned our current tax code is unclear, so that we should make those provisions. That's what I'm hearing. If that's not correct, I'll let me know. And I wanted to see, in terms of tax codes, are there other tax codes that other tribal nations have incorporated? In terms of, because it looks like Navajo Nation, we have received taxes from solar projects. Authority from NQA. So, committee members, I mean, I could look at this, but it was like phase one, and I don't know if it really happened. And maybe this entity says phase one granted over $3 million in taxes to the Navajo Nation. And the first, so I just quickly looked this up. If we ever received taxes from a solar project. So it looks like we have. But I'm willing to learn a little bit more if maybe that was also considered under this pilot process. So that'll be my first question, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman, you with the Friday with the Dr.
Thank you very much. So I'll start with the last question first and work backwards, because I think that's the simplest one to answer, if that's okay, Shmatali Friday. So currently, the only taxes that NQA and their subsidiaries pay on solar projects are the sales tax. So for phase one, the taxes that you're referring to are the sales tax. In the slides that were sent out, if you go to slide 7, you'll see, and this is a public portion of that document, that tribal enterprises sales tax is applicable here. It's all these other instances, they're not applicable. So we're not currently collecting PIT, BAT. They're not paying anything to the state of Arizona with respect to TPT or personal property tax or Arizona corporate income tax. So if you think about $3 million, that's what they paid just on construction. It's very easy to calculate those things relative to these other taxes. For other tribes, I'm not 100% sure exactly. I can't say I'm an expert in other tribes' tax codes. That might be something we could task our executive team with reviewing and doing more research into. And I can tell you that I have spoken with other tribes, both their leadership and folks in their administrative apparatus who are confronting the same issue. And many of them do not have the same sophistication as our tax regime, particularly when it comes to extractive industry and how things are designed that way. So they're more looking to create something de novo as opposed to modifying existing taxes. Going back to the point on tax on tribal enterprises and taxes on non-tribally owned entities, 7 is pretty instructive toward that. And then I would point to the prior presentation on the solar tax, where we did have Ms. Bilzowski and Ms. City speaking to the fact that there's a discrepancy between this PIT statute and the PIT regulation. And in addition to that, it's unclear whether there is applicability for some of these taxes on a solar project and to what extent. Now, we can't discuss the figures on the record right now because it's proprietary information. And just if you go to slide 8, though, I'll point you to that. That's where you see the precarity or the uncertainty between the low and the high end. And in the meetings that we had with the tax office and with the Department of Justice, they confirmed that those are things that really would need to be changed and need to be addressed if we're going to do an overall solar and renewables modification, or if we're just going to clean up those sections and then open up these taxes generally to all projects. So there really is that precarity. I think getting into the specifics, probably, I don't know if Ms. Bilzowski would say or Ms. City, but they probably don't want to go on the record right now and say this is exactly which is applicable, because other companies could construe that, and I don't know, take something back and hold us against the nation. So if you want to have that conversation, recommend going into executive session and going toward development. I just will mention this from the commercial law development program, and they're interfacing with the nation. There's this concept of levelized government take that they've been working on. So you take all of the different payments that would come in, lease payment, different tax payments, etc. And you try to hone down, say, into $1 per acre figure or $1 per other unit figure. Acre seems to make the most sense with respect to solar, since the value and usage of the land is the biggest aspect there. And it's something that I will be submitting legislation, because I think that it's the most coherent way of us assessing projects on a case-by-case basis, so that we can get data. And the secondary aspect of that I will mention is everything right now is basically unsolicited bids. So if you get an unsolicited bid in your community, you have no idea if it's a good price, right? So we need price discovery, and the way to do that is to then have an RFP process and automatically qualify the unsolicited bidding entity into this process. Recommendation from CLDP, all of our parties internal to the nation have interfaced with them and have been advising on this process, is to move forward with this so that we can collect data. And I think that this is incredibly valuable and will be instructive to members of the 26th Navajo Nation Council as they potentially consider reforms to the energy policy and other reforms maybe related to the conduct of the government and its organization. I'll yield back to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Frost, members of the Budget and Finance Committee. The sponsor has made the recommendation that if there are any questions, certainly on the tax percentages or how the representation of the formula steering the legislation, that we go into executive session. However, I'll leave the floor back to the committee for any further questions. So, Chairman and Vice President.
Thank you. Excellent. So, you did mention that this is case by case. There are, so on slide 7, a privately owned company is comparing themselves to a tribal entity. And so I wanted to understand that the dynamic, because we do hear from small business owners on Navajo Nation that they also need support in terms of some of the Navajo Nation requirements. And so I just wanted to get an understanding on slide 7. I don't think anything that's executive would just keep that question in the queue, but I think it's interesting, all of the other taxes. Because I would want to know then how would this privately owned company not be subject to the Arizona portion of the taxes? Sure.
You, Chairman Vanessa McCarty, I'm gonna give the floor back over to Vice Chairman for us, say this stuff.
Thank you. So slide 7, for those on the line. It has 2 different columns. And then each row is a different tax. The first 3 taxes are Navajo Nation taxes. The first one is the possessory interest tax, so that's kind of like a way to figure out an ad valorem tax with the land, something related to real estate and the property. The second one's business activity. It's not quite a corporate income tax for Navajo Nation, but it's close to that. Effie's nodding her head, so that explanation seems to satisfy that. Sales tax, we're all familiar with sales tax. You buy a bag of well, actually, I shouldn't use Cheetos. You buy a gallon of milk, buy a gallon of oat milk, so you don't disrupt your stomach, and you pay sales tax. If you buy Cheetos, then you have to pay the unhealthy food tax, but those are simple things, right? It's 6% of the value of the product that is being sold. Arizona transaction privilege tax. So if there's a nexus with selling to non-Navajos or selling off the reservation, that's where you would pay those taxes. I apologize, guys, not over here. Then the personal property tax, that goes back to the value of the land. Things there. So, if you're going to develop in Pinal County or Coconino off the reservation, then there's different taxes that are assessed on the value of the land. And generally in the state of Arizona, those have gone like super, super low. So there's no, you don't end up paying a ton off of that. The money ends up getting calculated in different ways, but you still do have to pay taxes to the local public authorities. I don't think generally that one's going to the state, but then you have, maybe, yeah, it is going to the state. You need the corporate income tax, so the profits from the company are taxed or whatever rate the Arizona corporate income tax rate is. Tribal entities generally retain sovereign immunity. So if you are John Doe Yazzie and you have John Doe Yazzie Construction Incorporated, you are potentially subject to all those taxes if their taxable event has a nexus with the state and with the Navajo Nation. Whereas if you're NTEC, NTUA, etc., you're treated like the tribe, right? So the state of Arizona can't tax another sovereign, and so they retain that tax status there with the sovereign, kind of tax immunity. And that's why for small business owners, they don't have those same benefits, and it can create an uneven playing field when it comes to taxation on any sort of development. Does that answer your question, or is there another aspect you want me to go into?
Well, all is, so what we're considering with this legislation is just the amount that would be owed to Navajo Nation. And the company would still have to pay Arizona tax. And so then my question would be, so then there is a possible formula on how to tax the business, just Navajo Nation doesn't have that process right now. Would be my question. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Chair. I apologize. So on the Arizona side, there are a bunch of credits and depreciation calculations, or not, like basis. What do you call it? Diminishing the basis. Yeah, so like, reducing the basis. Say the value of the project is $500 million. I'm just gonna make up numbers right here. Say the value of the project $500 million and you gotta pay 10%, I don't know, or say 5% property tax. Instead of being 5% of a $500 million value, it is 5% of, 20% of that project, or 5% or 10%. So when I was talking about those personal property taxes, that's where, in order to position Arizona as a solar leader. Prior leadership instituted a lot of tax breaks on the Arizona side. And that's where the nation is in a non-competitive situation with the adjacent jurisdictions because they have provided those tax breaks essentially to developers to develop within the state and, build. And there's a lot of reasons, right? Maintain the political relevance of the state when it comes to regional energy conversations, national energy conversations, to support manufacturing, support a certain tax base. You get them there, you lock them in, and maybe start increasing the taxes, which is something we might be seeing. So we don't have any authority to control the taxes that are owed to Arizona, but I would say that they have priced themselves very competitively for development, and that is why there is a lot of solar development in Arizona. On the Navigation side, this is providing a clear calculation in that pilot agreement on how they will pay taxes to the nation to make sure the nation gets the appropriate benefit from the project. And then we also introduced with Senator Myron, or sorry, Representative Myron Sosi, 2984 maybe, or 2982. And it is the transaction privilege tax legislation where we're trying to get a credit against the Arizona taxes for taxes paid to the Navajo Nation. And I think it would respect the sovereignty of both the state of Arizona and the sovereignty of the Navajo Nation. Of course, I don't think any state taxes should apply in the Navajo Nation or have any applicability. But until one of us can get the Supreme Court to agree with us, we're stuck in this situation. So that would be something that would be relevant to small business owners, Billy Crowdy, and maybe we can do a letter writing campaign with them to our state legislature to say, get your boot off our necks and help us develop the Navajo Nation tax base so we don't come down here asking for money and we have a more robust economy on the Navajo Nation in Arizona. Thank you.
Yeah, I can.
All right, thank you, Vice Chair Foster. We'll go back to Chairman Member, Mr. Brown.
Okay, thank you, longest leader, so I just want to see, in understanding, the payments in this agreement, or under this legislation. Are you able to publicly provide how this, is this solar development? Is the intent to help the local community have access to electricity? Or is the intent of the solar energy generated to be sold on the market for profit? And just give me a little bit of insight in terms of those transmission lines. And how I'm vaguely familiar like with microgrid, other things that we've done in the past. So I just want to see how this is set up before we go in executive. And of course, I always love a good community benefits plan. And so let me know if that's part of the agreement that we'll speak about. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Member. We'll go back to Vice Chair Foster.
Thank you very much, Billy Crowdy. So to answer the first question, is this community solar? Is this a microgrid system? It is neither of those. This is a utility scale solar development for commercial purposes. So that's why we would not take such an aggressive I would hope that the nation would not take such an aggressive negotiating position with a developer if the purpose is to have that electricity come back and use within our communities. Generally, right now, we're able to source most of our needs, through NTUA. And, I'll give you an example. I have no prejudice against NTUA. I'm working on a community solar project within a Round Rock right now. The whole purpose of that is to reduce the rates and also shore up, like we're at the end of the line. So if there's some inclement weather, everyone turns on their AC, if they're blessed enough to have an AC. I wish I were, then, the lights flicker, they go out for 20 minutes, they go out for 2 hours, it's just such a pain in the behind. that is not what this type of project is. That's to shore up our grid. And help the adjacent communities too in that project. This one, is designed for sale off reservation. Then the proceeds from that come back to the nation in the form of taxation, lease payments, and then a community benefits, agreement that they've worked out with the local chapter and community. And so, again, I think that that's proprietary information between the chapter and the company. So if you want to discuss it, it would probably need to be an executive session. And I think I answered both of those questions. So this is not going to drive up rates for Navajo ratepayers. And it's also going to provide revenue on the local side and on the Navajo national side.
That our little solar installation does not decrease the rate.
Yeah, I can tell you about that one. I mean, they, SRP, what I'm doing is a totally different thing. That's an agreement with SRP.
Okay, I make a follow-up point. Appreciate that this is identified as a facility scale. I want to ask, on exhibit A 5F, is that something we could have on record or an executive?
A5.
Right, and you know, it's not page 5, it's page 3 of 10, please, I'm sorry. It's 5. Check. So section 5, that.
The security, which that includes the word security in it. Although, you want to ask the question first, and then we can ask what the, from the lawyers and stuff.
Appreciate it if you suppose I wanted to ask in this agreement. In section 5, payment in lieu of non-resolution taxes. So subsection F says, EVP, which is the name of the company. Yes, Clean Desert Power LLC. Is not required to provide security for the annual payment pursuant to Title 24. Section 119, 133, or otherwise. So, my question was, if this payments are gonna be sent to the tax commission, I know that this is, being presented to provide stability to the investor. I wanted to see from the navigation side, how does this provide stability in terms of, the pilot providing revenue to the navigation annually. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman Hammer, Vice Chairman Slater. Want to answer this or?
I can start, sorry. I could start off. So this says that the entity is not required to provide security for annual payment pursuant to 24 NC subsections 119 and 133 or otherwise. So that's like equivalent to posting a bond. And I don't think in any other equivalent commercial venture, we require the posting of a bond. Usually that's related to reclamation and construction. And so this is about the payments for what the generation is that is going to come out of the facility. And so, that will fluctuate based off of the amount of offtake and usage. If some of it's coming online at a certain point. And I don't think that to create a commercially viable environment, it makes sense to post bonds related to future tax payments. Unless there's a potential adverse impact, and that would be like deleterious impacts to the environment. And that's why you post the reclamation bonds if this were whatever. Now, on that side, when it comes to bonding related to the disturbances to the land, that's all going to be over here. That is above board. But what we're talking about in this agreement is the specific pilot taxes that come to the nation for on the generation side. So for disturbances to land, all of those things, those have to be posted, of course. And then there was one other thing. Yeah, that's it. So if does that answer your question, or do you want further elaboration from?
Okay, so in terms of a follow-up, So Delegate Dr. Andy Nez, and the council, we supported a $2 million set aside to clean up, environmental impacts on the nation. And these are usually stemming from some type of industry. So solar industry does have contaminants. It does disturb the land. And, because this is a venture, you know, it's a private venture, it appears that Navajo Nation that is responsible to do cleanup afterwards. So is there a part of, this agreement, or because even business site leases, we're all dealing with cleanups on business site leases, right? So that's monies for millions and millions of dollars for, business site lease cleanups. So I wanted to see in terms of the discussion, where does that play a part? And when you mention, reclamation and other, reseeding of the ground, I believe there should be a plan. So if you come onto the nation and want to develop, that's being a good relative. So I wanted to, and I understand, I'm very familiar with the area in terms of, the impact of uranium on the ground and on water and, in the community health. And so I think, especially in this area, there should be, consideration for the impact on the land. So I want to bring that to your attention, colleagues, and hopefully my last question on the record is, so the inflation reduction of 2022, was hopefully assigned to get, funding into Indian country. We all know that was pulled back, and tech loss and NQA lost some grants. So I just wanted to ask, in terms of this private entity, are they, since they're not a tribal entity, are they able to, or do they use the nation and our circumstances here to get access to capital for their operations or development? And I would want to know a little bit more about that, because that also means there's a relationship between the company and our Navajo Nation people. Thank you.
PD's over there, Mr. Private, go back to the topic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the details of all the bonding and the reclamation plans are contained in the RDC resolution for the lease payment. This is a tax agreement, and so RDC JA 0126 contains the exhibits that have both the addendum to the lease and then the lease as it was executed initially. And that is where information on decommissioning and reclamation, et cetera, all the associated plans related to the environmental compliance. This had to receive approval from the environmental entity, the federal and Navajo Nation environmental entities in order to move forward. And I'm scrolling through right now because that's not a part of this legislation. I didn't tag that, so I need a moment to find it, but it is included and contemplated in this legislation. So, sorry, in their lease, Painted Desert Power's lease for this project. So if I was unclear before, the section in here that was highlighted, the 5F, is talking to generation taxes. It is completely separate and independent from reclamation, anything to do with the land. It's saying you don't have to post a bond for the taxes that you owe to the nation, that you may owe to the nation at the end of the year. And that's something that in some circumstances may make sense in other arrangements. But that's effectively like telling the C-store that you have to post a bond to pay all of your contemplated taxes on January 1 and hold that throughout the year and then figure it out later whether you have to pay all those taxes or not. So through this agreement, this is where, they are committing and are legally obligated to pay these taxes to the Navajo Nation. And then on the reclamation side, that's covered in the lease. And with more time, I'll be able to find that and explain what that is. Okay.
But you brought it up.
Reclamation?
Yeah.
No, you brought up reclamation because you brought up security. I didn't talk about reclamation.
You said they're not bonding because they're not doing reclamation.
No, I said it's because it is not, this is not a reclamation bond. I'm saying that this is talking about posting a bond for the obligation of the generation taxes. I wasn't talking about reclamation. So for access to capital, I think that's an interesting question, and I think that if you want to talk directly to the company, I would invite them to come up and talk about. Well, that's what I'm trying to understand, if you're saying related to the Navajo people, so. If there are tax breaks related to the federal liability. Then I think that's more in their wheelhouse, because I'm not the company. And I'm happy to invite them up, but I don't want to presume to invite the company up if the committee does not want that.
Okay, and so I'm gonna go back to page 3 of 10, 5B. So, so, because I was looking at when do these payments, if approved, will move forward, and so it says shall commence on the actual commercial operation date of the project as noticed under the interconnection agreement. Can you just tell me a little bit more about the interconnection agreement? Because it does look like we're in this. So page 7 of 10. 8C. So I was looking at when it all like expires. And so C and that like little I or ones and everything. It says the first phase of the project is not achieved commercial operation date as defined in section 5B. Right? By 2032. So that's 6 years of giving time. So just give me a little bit of information when to the best of your understanding, when you think if approved annual payments will commence. Okay.
Thank you very much. Sorry. Thank you very much, Chair Karate. Yeah, so starting at the end, just like you said, if the first phase of the project does not achieve the commercial operations date as defined by section 5B by 2032, on the date the lease expires or the date the lease is terminated. So that's essentially a development period for construction and getting the interconnection agreement. There's no commercial operations or really taxable activity except for the construction taxes and things like that. You know, that would be owed, but instead they're being waived in this instance in order to get a higher amount on the generation. So the interconnection agreement would be with the utility entity. It's not with WAPA or anything, right? It's just with the utility entity. And that is the generation connecting into the grid and then sending those electrons into the grid and you know, it going to power up things. And that's essentially what we'll then be calculating is and coming up with the values for this payment in lieu of taxes. So that's when the payments are going to start, is when you actually have commercial activity for this interconnection into the grid. And then it sets out this period of time. So, you know, the nation isn't taken for a ride saying, well, we're going to develop this thing and then it doesn't get developed and then, you know, it's just tied up, right? And I think that is consistent with the lease terms for development periods. So, you know, NTUA, you know, they have different developments that they're doing related to solar and otherwise. And, you know, you get a period for construction and then you get a period for the commercial operations. And that's really what this is speaking to, is when this project becomes commercialized with that connection to the utility and the grid. Did that answer it? Okay.
Okay. So let's go to page 3 of 10, 5B. So I just wanted to ask a general question, and for the committee and colleagues, if you're not ready at this time I wanted, and I pulled up RDC, I'm not sure what discussions they're having, but it does look like if this venture is successful, there's an interconnection agreement, they'll go and they'll pay the tax commission. And so I think, colleagues, this is where we have to have a conversation, because the remaining will go in the Navajo Nation General Fund. And seeing that, you know, the Trump administration, clawed back all of that federal funding, it's not clear how much of that funding was awarded to benefit Navajo Nation or surrounding areas. I would ask, if we could have an opportunity, I know our agendas are tight, but if, we could consider setting up a fund to help support, the creation of, I don't know what you would call it. I would have to look at the federal information on the inflation reduction, but it doesn't look like there's anywhere that Navajo Nation actually has funding specifically for renewable energy projects. I know we're talking about the CDFA and other areas, but, colleagues, I would just want to see if we could start looking at what could be possibilities. It's similar to like how we collect the healthy food tax, and it's collected and then distributed for citizens. You know, some, and where sometimes like the state, well, you have all these restricted funding, but, in my opinion, we try to get an FRR project, solar project. And then Jonathan Nez, I remember the line items vetoed that project, that could have really, done some of the legwork for some of these operators coming on. So I just wanted to offer that as an ending, comment in this public discussion on, the legislation. Thank you, Chair, colleagues.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Honorable Vice Chair, Slade, for your presentation. And then also for the questions that were asked. Few of them. My knowledge and overlap those questions, but which is good. I'm glad that you did that. But the first of all, what I really appreciate is your comment regarding consistent moderating need for environmental impacts. So I think that's a need that we have if this legislation does pass to continue monitoring that. Secondly, is the question that my Shinano did give, when the Navajo Nation would actually start receiving compensation for access to capital. I think that's a question that's already been posed. And then thirdly, Honorable Vice Chair, if this is a question that might be asked under Exhibit A, if under number 2, term renewal expiration, if this amendment or modification to Exhibit A will include any revisions to the 25-year lease. And lastly is, I do believe would be a question for executive session. Again, it would be under 5D, which should not have both 90 that can get on the general funding, and then we also the a percentage of payments to total administrative costs for the middle department. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Ask this question. Madam Chair, we for that.
Delegate Lozanowski, we'll go back to Vice Chairman Rouse here to answer as many questions as he can. And then if any of those questions or further operations that Delegate Lozanowski requested require executive session, I should say. Thank you.
Thank you. So the first one, the environmental impact monitoring. And things related to that, you know, the decommissioning bond is stated in the lease, and then the monitoring and the obligations for the company is contained within that lease. So I'm not really an expert on that right now. I could get up to speed in an hour probably, but I would just point you to the lease to get those questions answered, and we can get the Navajo Nation EPA to answer how those things are handled, if you'd like to. But you know, that's an approved lease over here under our DC. And then for the ongoing operations,
related to the generation and the taxation on the generation that's covered in this document. With renewal, 25-year period with an option for another 25 years. And if they don't elect to renew, then it says that the agreement's gonna expire, so they're not gonna be continuing commercial operations. And they're obligated to pay all their taxes under their commercial operations, and once that's done, then they're gonna have to decommission the project, and then they will. There isn't gonna be a taxable activity for them to be paying taxes for, so, but that would be the end of both the parallel end of both the lease and the tax agreement, the pilot. And then with respect, I didn't understand the question with respect to administrative costs, so can you help me understand that?
Thank you, Madam Chair. That was just a question that I felt, Vice Chair would be more suitable for an executive session.
Oh, okay,
There's
okay.
number 6 on there, and then also the general fund.
Yeah, colleagues, Delegate Yazzie, if I'm interpreting your support for what Delegate Prati had said correctly, then I'm not sure we have to say it's a segregated fund or whatever. We can come with a 5-year expenditure plan to accomplish the same purposes, is set aside within the general fund. Put it into a business unit. I 100% agree with all those things, and I think just to draw a connection to what I was talking about with the bidding process, not reverse RFP. The nation has done a certain amount of mapping about energy resources, both renewable and non-renewable energy resources, and critical minerals, all that stuff. They've done an analysis on gen-tie connections into the grid. There could be some master RFPs that go out and look at, okay, well, give us the best proposal and what's the greatest amount of money you can provide to local communities and to the Navajo National Project. Are there ancillary industries that you'd want to build up in relation to a project that you want to do? And then you could go in and negotiate local communities, or you could just set aside funding for communities to do that on a local or regional scale. I'm completely in support of those things, and something that I would hope if we set aside money for an operating energy office, that they would partner with communities and regions to accomplish those goals. And I think that that's a very wise idea. So then with respect to the access to capital, I still don't quite get that one, but if you want to talk about the compare capital stack of investors, I know that's something they probably want to do in an executive session, because that's protected business info on their end. But I know that they've had those conversations with DOJ and the tax commission to, provide assurances that, Navajo Power can use the name Navajo, shows that they're Navajo owned, and therefore they're permitted to do that. And then I just conferred with them right now, they don't have any DOE or they don't have any grants right now for the project where there's any expiring funding or anything like that. Any developer, including NTUA, because there's like the payment and not just the liability side of those grants, those are expiring, where you have to have some sort of substantial construction or completion by certain dates that are upcoming. I know that there's a race against the clock for different projects to get that all moving. And then you can ask them specifically about the applicability there, but that's not something that's specific to like Indian country necessarily, or like using our people's names or whatever. It's about solar incentives in general for development in the United States. And those incentives then being eliminated, I think, in the one big, beautiful, characterize it. And then there were there were things that went to NTUA that I know NTUA and the nation fought to maintain. And there was the agreement that we have right now, under which the commercial law development program is assisting the Navajo Nation, and that's that agreement with DOE on transition from conventional fuel sources into a renewables economy and trying to diversify our economy from there. And that was preserved, and so that's something that continues, that MOU or MOA continues to have work done under it. And I'm happy to go into executive session if and when we would desire to do that.
Thank you, Vice Chair. So more questions coming from the community that may be earlier during the session, but does anyone else have any questions? Delegate Sharon Massey?
Good afternoon, everybody. There's some really good questions. Just for my own personal, I do have solar I support solar, I support renewable energy. But what you're asking about is taxes for the next 50 years, whatever. And it would be like, somebody coming to my place and saying, we're gonna put on a solar project. And we'll pay you this much. But in terms of, you have no say on anything around these parameters for that time. So I'm locked into something that I would have no control over. And that's where I think my concern would be for future, I guess, councils and administration. And so when I look at your map, on page 18 on PowerPoint. And so there's like an area 1. RV, and then there's an area 2. Okay, so I'm thinking about, let's say if it was the solar at my place, you're putting something up for area 1, and so does this cover both area 1 and 2? Okay, so it's for both of them, okay. So then, again, I'm wondering if because of what we bring in for revenue, which we're trying to say how we can bring in revenue using solar, in this case, the solar project. For one area, I'm guessing area 1 would be built out first. And then later on area 2, or are you planning to do the whole thing at once? That's kind of my question, because then, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's my.
You want to get that one answered first?
Yeah.
Do you mind if they come up to talk about it? Because I think they need to be liable for what they said.
Yeah, they've been nodding their heads and giving us signs, it's false.
Oh, then we go like this. That's the point.
Gata, Sheba Isaac and shit, Kianishi, Bashi Bashishi, Kislang, Bashishera told him the my name is Brett Isaac. I'm the founder and CEO of Navajo Power. Thank you for allowing me to respond to your questions. In terms of the phasing, we have those areas split into 2 phases, mainly to avoid certain obstacles, but the size of the project is 750 megawatts, which is rather large. The way we would intend to phase it is how it would be procured from energy buyers. And right now, typically they buy phases of like 200 to 500 megawatts, you know? So it could be done in 2 phases, it could be done in 3. And then there's an instance where it could be done all at once too. It depends on the marketplace at the time that this is available for power. But over the last 10 years, the utilities in the state of Arizona have been procuring thousands of megawatts of solar. So there's definitely a demand for it, and it's only increasing with the growth that's happening down in the southern part of Arizona with all the manufacturing that's going on. So we anticipate that there will probably be phases, as many as 3, but they also could be 1. It's just depending on when the power is made available and what the marketplace is buying at that time.
Yes, that helps me understand a little bit more of what this agreement that we would be voting on. And I think that's where you're saying to go into executive 1, so we could look at these redacted numbers, so what it means to help me make a decision on what we would be voting for, because I think, to me, we're talking mainly about taxes and how much we would be bringing in for revenue for the future, and I guess I just need to see if it's gonna be viable or not, because then you're taking, on this map, you're only showing 2 areas, but if you're gonna do a 3rd area based on, you know, how much money.
It's all contained.
Oh, it's all contained. Okay, so I guess I just need to see what that number would look like to help me understand and see again, like for the future, what is it we're gonna be bringing in, and is it gonna be enough? That's how I understand it. Okay, so I'm following along, all right. So there's your time, it's the unit stuff, is that right?
Right, I think you don't get Shirley, I see you in this committee, you want something. Oh, the committee.
You want to do the amendment?
Going to the executive session They don't show the numbers, the people will question. What numbers are we approving? That's my concern, because we're here to the people, they don't show the numbers and what. What's supposed to be paid tax on that we're giving away free, It is, it's a what she.
Alright, thank you, though, for coming to say. Great concern, I'll give it back to the sponsor. Response to me.
Thank you very much. I guess I would say the reason for this is to protect the nation's ability to extract the maximum amount of value to the nation from projects, which might seem counterintuitive from a transparency perspective. But what it does is allows us to not have entities collude among themselves and instead compete before us to provide the maximum amount of funding to us in a combination of lease payments and tax payments to the nation. And if we have a desire for a more diversified economy and for a tax base that will pay into that, then we need to provide a clear tax regime. So we don't have that right now when it comes to solar and renewables development. And I think, I would assure and encourage anyone who is doubting otherwise that you could have minerals as they've attested in this document. You can have the Department of Justice as they've attested in the document. The tax commission as they've attested in these documents. They are supporting and recommending this to the nation because it provides the greatest amount of return back to the nation for something that otherwise would be undeveloped. So it's not just like 100% of nothing is nothing. It is actually a very strong and reasonable amount that's coming back to the nation under the agreement. And that means that there will be development, there will be revenue to the community, and there will be revenue to the Navajo Nation. So that's how I would characterize that, but I understand the concern. Now, in terms of advancing supporting development, I think having these sorts of terms included as a part of the legislation does support transparency to the greatest and feasible amount possible to people, with our citizens, and then also to industry or potential developers in general. Maybe they're not interested in doing solar, but they want to do a different type of development, where there is a lack of clarity or certainty within our tax code. They could look at these agreements and say, well, we don't want to negotiate a whole bunch of these, and we don't want Effie wasting her time doing that for a bunch of yahoos who just want to pull the wool over the nation's eyes. And that's why they're resistant to it for so long. But at this point, this is the best instrument for the nation to extract value in a reasonable term for the company and for the nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Crossley. I'll back to the committee for additional questions. Chair Carney, additional questions.
Okay, so I'm just looking at what RDC approved with, what Chair Slater mentioned, RDC JA 0126 maybe. Yeah, because I'm looking at like the lease maintenance. So I'm just trying to, in its entirety, chair committee members, like, what are the benefits that the nation is providing to this company? And I still don't see like the community benefit plan. And my concern is that needs to be written in the agreement. Because companies will promise and provide, selective community members incentives to support the project, but it's the community as a whole is impacted. And I know that makes it challenging, but that's just the environment that we serve, like in my district. There's was a lot of communication and collaboration on affiliate discussions, and what our own enterprise had promised the people, they would not put that in writing. I don't know how many times we met with our DOJ attorneys and their attorneys, and they would not put it in writing. So I'm just saying in total, because it looks like you know, it looks like the right of way, of course, is gonna have its other process. Now we're doing leasing. I'm gonna do a little bit more in terms of like how much the nation is providing to the company to develop and, then I would want to see that like in terms of the benefit. So that's where I'm at right now. And I don't know, Chair, or if the sponsor knows, in this RDC legislation, it did say a waiver of performance bond. 16, Title 16, Section 2335B. Shadeja, if you could research that for me. And I just want to understand if that's like company performance, because I feel like even though it's an RDC oversight with the lease, I'm just trying to be like, okay, how much are we waiving? And I would want to ask if controllers on the line, I don't know, like Sovereign or anyone, like an outside entity, I know we're saying minerals and taxes. I don't know if there's an outside entity that could provide us, like expert, information so that we know as a nation how we could maximize, what we collect on behalf of the Navajo Nation sequence before we enter into a long-term agreement that's, you know, anywhere. This right now, as I'm reading it, is anywhere from 6 years to 25 years to maybe 50 years. So I would want to, like, in any development, have the third party look on it. So that as Navajo Nation, we could make sure, or if minerals department or tax commission did that, just provide that information. As we move forward, because I just, you know, I'm looking at what's the anticipated annual payment of the lease. I think I have a number. There's a slide here that may have a number. I think it might be the negotiated number, and I'm trying to wrap my head around how that was negotiated. But I do know that I would want to have this information, and I'm not sure if that's going to be made available. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you, Chair and Representative McCarty. I heard a request from the controller to respond to an evaluation. And he's familiar with this legislation evaluation on essentially the cost benefit analysis. Regarding the ratio between the benefits to the company and the benefit to the people. Then I also heard the same thing from Dr. Carolyn Ozzie for long-term projections, because that's not part of this legislation. So before I go to the controller to hear what he has done in partnership with this legislation, I'll go back to the Vice Chair Slater for responsibility.
Thank you. So right now, the Navajo Nation doesn't have like an energy office that coordinates the, say, development of projects like this or things of that nature. So instead, we just have a smattering of different entities that have different responsibilities in the review process. That said, I guess as a matter of custom, it seems like the Minerals Office and their relationship under that DOE, so they have 2 DOE fellows, people who've been involved in project financing before, they're now on the Navajo Nation side, negotiating, advising. Then the nation has like an energy development consultant, Ms. Kaufman, who has been staying with Minerals Tax Commission, Department of Justice, RDC, others, I guess, on evaluating these deals. And then that has all then been plugged in with the commercial law development program. And I mean, maybe there's things that I want to have in an executive session absent the company here. And if you want to have that, I'm perfectly fine and tell you about those things. If you want to hear from them directly, I don't know if any of them are on the line right now, but you have in that correspondence from the, then I guess, let me just pause there for a second. Tully Crowdy brought up waivers of certain things. I think that those are things that probably need to be discussed in executive session. I don't know, because that's a part of the lease and I wasn't a part of the lease. I really have nothing to do with the lease. My assumption though is if something's being waived and the nation's gaining something somewhere else, so that there's an increased rate on the lease payments. That's an assumption right now. And that's something that we probably could discuss in executive session and figure out how to then get the maximum amount of information back on the record when we come back. So. Yeah, I mean. I don't know how much of this is like protected information saying that, you know, with the specific. Language that each of these entities use to sign off on this. You know. I can tell you very clearly that this was not something that was ad hoc shooting from the hip. It's based off of real financial analysis on what the project can bear and what we expect the project developers to pay to the nation. Because this was definitely a negotiation, the figures that were arrived at. So I think in order to maximize information flow to my colleagues, we would have to go into executive session and then get advisement from DOJ on what then could be said back on the record.
Yeah, any questions? Does anyone else have any questions? Before we go into executive session? Also, I'll motion chair to go into executive session. 40 minutes, do we have a state phone? We have this, yes.
Say no more than X amount. You have to say the time and the people who are allowed to participate in executive session.
Very good. Okay, very good. Like this, yeah. Our advisors and, or these guys and what? Or Michelle, Michelle can control something, controller is your thing. And. How about, oh, I think, well, I think it's. And I have a question, I don't know if it was part of the negotiation, where's the part, I mean, like, I don't have any back.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying, it's like. Shoot, let me disconnect from audio. I was trying to see who was on here so we could. Disconnect audio. Okay, there we go.
Yes, everybody, but like Navajo Nation people, because I need to know about the negotiation.
So. You're saying everyone minus the company. When I say everyone, I mean, you mean internal Navajo Nation people.
If you get a Navajo Nation picture.
Yeah.
It's
Mel, I don't see Catherine on there. Can you ping her? If you're able to.
And we're just coming in so cold on this.
He's just gonna do another line.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. I just don't see her on here right now. People keep moving around.
Okay, so the recognized motion to go into executive session for no more than 30 minutes, by show of interested party. And the individuals in this executive session will be information beliefs that include the Office of Legislative Counsel, the Department of Justice. Specifically, Vice Chair Slater, are you recommending that both us be on the phone?
My recommendation would be. Individuals from Office of Navajo Tax Commission, the Minerals Department, and their consultant if he's available to get on. The Department of Justice, so like Mel and Catherine. And then. That's it. That was it on the tax side. It's the minerals people, they're the ones.
Over here.
The VOA. MIA
Okay.
WEI.
For the record, the motion on the floor is to go into executive session for no more than 30 minutes with DOJ, Mr. Melrose, and Captain Sesky, Office of Legislative Counsel, I believe Mariana Khan, and Ms. Espino. And our advisors here at OLS, who is Mr. Rodney Totti, Mr. Rel, Nota, Mr. Let's see. All right, and then we have speaker boxes here, if we have any of our advisors, like one B or whoever is still involved, they can be included, and anyone else? Oh, tax commission, there's the city, too. Did we miss anyone? We're gonna try to get, minerals on call as well, because I don't think they're on the call. Initially, is that it? Okay, so we'll let them know. Any further clarification, Vice Chair Slater, does it?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm getting confused now.
Mr. Yaki,
I'm also looking for the third council BOJ. Tax minerals, there's office funding and it's full. Sorry about Blackwater.
okay, Ms. Blackwater, I don't know if you were part of this discussion too, but I think that's all she said.
Yeah.
Anything else?
So.
Sorry, it's difficult to hear, but I can say if you. This is Dara Blackwater, OPVP.
Ryan Benali at Minerals?
So we do, there Blackwater, we will send out a, email to those, individuals a part of this motion. And we will, there's. For the executive session and then, move forward to charge on the executive session. Just hang on a second. Second, by Doug Stroh, the Professor. Chairman and Professor Friday Street, and Delegate Lester, I think I do. All right, host, or, Delegate Lester, I was on the screen, 5 members voting, some of it zero, opposed, that's all not voting. The motion carries to go into executive session. While we logistically set up the second line, we'll send that out to the individuals and for the public. We will come back to the budget and finance committee around